click. The gun misfires. And Renee, she doesn't notice or even hear what's happening behind her because she's concentrating so hard on her studies. Then, 2 days later, Issie invites her back over. And again, she's sitting down at a table, writing, and Issie does the same thing. He sneaks out of the room to get his rifle again, and he creeps up behind her, and he points it at her head, and he pulls the trigger. Blam! But this time, no misfire. She's unalived. And then, oddly, Issie is shocked. Like, he can't believe that he actually went through with it. So, he faints, and he falls on the floor. Moments later, he wakes up and regains consciousness. And he's like, okay, I guess I have to eat her now. And because he's a disgusting person, he essays her body, and then he proceeds to try and eat her. But he realizes his teeth aren't sharp enough, so then he has to leave the apartment and go out and buy a butcher knife. But yeah, then he eats as much of her as he can. Then, a few days later, the body, it's decomposing at this point. And he's like, I gotta get her out of the apartment. So he stuffs what's left of her into 2 suitcases, then he brings those suitcases to a nearby park to dispose of them. But while he's at the park, some bystanders notice that there's a lot of blood dripping from this guy's suitcases. And it doesn't take long for people to call the police. And so, bam, they arrest Issie again. And here's a photo of him being escorted by French police. And here is another one. And Issie admits to unaliving Renee, and they throw him in jail, but it's not over. Because Issie is about to get kind of famous from all this. So he sits in jail for about 2 years waiting on his trial. Meanwhile, his rich dad pays for good legal defense, like the most expensive lawyer they could find. And ultimately, the judge finds Issie legally insane and unfit to stand trial. So they end up dropping the charges and they send him to a psychiatric facility. And eventually, he's deported and transferred to another psych facility in Tokyo, Japan. But since he had been declared legally insane and the charges had been technically dropped in France, his court documents had been officially sealed. Which means the Japanese government can't charge him with a crime because there are no legal documents to back it up. So, unfortunately, they have to let him go. Only 5 years after he murdered Renee, he checks out of the psych facility in Tokyo. And now he's free. But he has trouble getting work because, businesses tend to not hire people who eat other people. But then, one day, a magazine approaches him, and they ask him to write an article for them, and they pay him a shitload of yen